Hello and welcome back to the channel of nonsense. Now there's a school of thought with electric cars that they need to look like normal cars if they're going to become as accepted as having a man crush on Bruce Springsteen, and I would normally agree. I think people are more likely to buy electric cars if they look like every other car, but then Hyundai brought out the Ioniq 5 and yeah, they made me rethink that whole train of thought, because this is an electric car. It looks ridiculous. I drove the dual motor version last year, you might remember, but I've been living with this single motor for a whole week, using it as a family car, so I want to see how it stacks up in everyday use, despite looking like it came from another planet, where there isn't Bruce Springsteen in tight jeans playing a Telecaster. Anyway, weird thoughts, let's go. Yes, here is the Hyundai Ioniq 5. You're probably familiar with this. It's the sister car to the Kia EV6, but this Hyundai starts from £37,000 and goes all the way up to 48 grand. And as you'd expect, there are single motor versions and dual motor versions. The single motor you can get with either 170 horsepower or 217 horsepower, and with 58 kilowatt hour or 83 kilowatt hour batteries, 78 kilowatt hour usable. This is the 78 kilowatt hour battery. So this one is actually £44,600 because it's in the ultimate spec, which is the top spec. Now just rewind a bit. If you get the small battery one, you'll go 238 miles on a range apparently, and 298 with this bigger battery. The EV6 will actually go to 328 miles. I guess it's a bit more aerodynamic, maybe, but either way, it's a reasonably big range for an electric car. I've only been getting 240 miles out of this, but it is winter, and the range on this, I'll just get in there, is actually pretty accurate, what it tells you on the dashboard. And I've been driving on motorways at 75 miles an hour, and despite that, it's not taken a hammering. Now, doing a review of the Ioniq 5 without talking about its looks is a bit like meeting the Queen and not asking her what colour knickers she's wearing. It is, look at it, it's just striking. You've got this huge clamshell bonnet, you've got these pixelated lights which have turned off, but I'll stick a shot in, 256 pixels in those, and Hyundai says it's going to use this pixel design on all of its Ioniq electric cars that are coming up. There are three trim levels of the Ioniq 5. There's SE Connect, which doesn't get full LED headlights. I don't know what they look like, but probably a little bit pants. I've not actually seen one. And then there's Premium and this top spec Ultimate, which do get LED headlights. You do get 20-inch wheels on the Ultimate, but only if you go for the bigger battery. Otherwise, the 58 kilowatt hour Ultimate gets 19-inch wheels, as does the lower two trim levels. So if you want 20s, you've got to get a top spec one with the big battery. Does that make sense? Are you still here? Probably not. Don't click away. This is great. It pays for my child's nursery. Right. You get flush door handles, which pop out like this when you unlock the car to get in. You get these strakes down the side. And yeah, it's one of those cars that the shape of it fools you into thinking, oh, it's like a Volkswagen Golf, that kind of size car, but it's actually bigger than a Hyundai Tucson or a Tiguan. It is pretty big, which is actually quite handy considering it's a family car. Now, in terms of the charging tech, you should know that this is on Hyundai and Kia's eGimp platform, which you don't really need to know, but I want to say it, which means it's got an 800 volt system, so it can take a 220 kilowatt charger, which will get you from 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. And I've had 125 kilowatts max from 175 kilowatt charger, and it can also do something called vehicle to load. So this is the charging flap, which you unlock the car and then it opens. Why is that not opening? That's really annoying. Let's find the key. There we go. There's the charging flap. So you've got CCS connector, obviously, for fast charging, and this kind of shows you your battery status when you're looking at it. But you can plug a thing in here, which has got a 3-pin plug on the end of it, so you can charge your house or kind of plug domestic appliances into it. It's quite clever. Round the back, you've got more pixels, which all light up, and it looks like something out of the 80s. I quite like it, but I know some people think it's a little bit fussy. The boot is reasonably big. There you go, look at those indicators, all blocky and cool. Sorry, I've got a load of stuff in there as usual, but it's a 540 litre space, which is bigger, way bigger than something like a Ford Mustang Mach-E, and it's the same-ish as a Volkswagen ID4, and it's 20 litres bigger than the Kia EV6. I would say, though, that we're starting to get these kind of kinks eating into the boot access. Same on the BMW iX, that's got big chunky bits at the back there as well. Not entirely sure why. Under the boot floor, I don't know if I'm going to lift this up, but you've got places for cables and the vehicle to load dongle and stuff like that. But anyway, let's look at the back seats and I'll show you why I think this is a pretty cracking family car. Beep, beep, beep. Hyundais and Kias, they love to beep. Actually, just before we hop inside, on the charging front, this has crashed 2 fast chargers that I've used. It got to 80% this morning from about 25%, really quickly, in about half an hour. And then the charger just cut out and went out of order, and it said there was an error because of the car. And it's done that twice. It did it to an Ioniq one as well yesterday, which is annoying because you get a year's Ioniq subscription with one of these when you buy it in the UK. But anyway, let's have a look at the back seats, just brighten it up a little bit. They are massively roomy, and there are loads and loads of non-leather options for the interior of this. So yeah, you can get things which are like recycled from bits of nature and lovely things which are all good for the environment. But it's just really airy feeling, lots of textiles. A steering wheel with no Hyundai badge, which we'll get onto. You probably can't see down there, but this little center console, if you get an Ultimate car, it does slide backwards and forwards, but not really very much. And I don't really know what the point is because everyone can reach it when it's there. It's got 2 USBs there. It's got more USBs for the front seat passengers and a massive tray and a charging pad. There's a 3-pin plug in the middle on the floor, which I'll show you in a cutaway, and there's loads of room for getting child seats in as well. It's just, I don't know, because it's high like an SUV, or reasonably high, you're not bending over lots to get your kids in. Yeah, rear seats are heated as well on Ultimate cars. I'm going to jump in and show you what a 6'3" Fanny looks like. Fanny is an idiot, not the other one. I fit in the back absolutely fine. I've got loads of headroom. The roof's actually really nice and high, so my toddler this morning was complaining that she couldn't wipe her jam-covered digits all over my headlining, which is a good thing. The doors, they haven't really got visible handles to grab. You just kind of have to shove your hand down here. I've got colour change ambient lighting. Again, that's an Ultimate car thing. And when the door's shut, it doesn't feel too claustrophobic, but this is reasonably high, I guess, here. So if you've got really short kids that are worried about getting car sick, yeah, maybe not ideal, but otherwise, I really like it in the back here. Obviously, I've got loads of leg room. That's not really indicative because this slides back and forth when you turn the car off and on to facilitate easier access. But that's enough about the back. Let's go up the front. I'll show you all the cool stuff. I'll show you the dashboard in a second, but I just want to give you an idea of the whole lounge vibe of this car. There's nothing in the middle between your legs down there to separate your feet from your passenger's feet. That's because all the aircon stuff's been moved under the front where an engine would normally be. But it means you're left with cubbies galore. He hits his camera. There's a USB there. There's USBs down there and a wireless charging mat and a massive space for dropping your Greggs sausage roll, which I did yesterday. And there's another cubby in the armrest. There's storage space absolutely everywhere in this car, and I just like the whole cabin atmosphere that you get from it being so open. You're not enclosed. I did wonder what this was for. You can put this little kind of leg rest up, but it only goes there, so when you're sitting down you can't actually feel that when you're driving. However, it's designed so you can recline the seat fully, and then it almost turns into a bit of a bed. There we go, look at that. So when you're charging this, you can lie it right back, have your legs supported, and have a little nap, or sit back and think of England as you're charging it. While we're talking about the seats, I should point out that these are ventilated on Ultimate models, and the Ultimate version also gets metal pedal covers, which you don't get on the other ones, recycled yarn options, recycled sugarcane extract, all of that kind of stuff. I think dolphins' tears for the door handles. It's all really good. Now, the gear shifter is here. You twist it to go into drive and neutral and reverse. However, somehow yesterday at 70 miles an hour on the M40 motorway, the car suddenly stops accelerating. I didn't know why. I'd been using the highway cruise assist and all sorts of electronic stuff, and it suddenly stopped accelerating. I had gone to hard shoulder and I thought I'd broken down. I was getting in between trucks and I was getting a bit panicked, and suddenly I realised the car was in neutral. I don't know if I knocked it into neutral, I probably did, or if the electronics freaked out and stuck it in neutral, but that was a little bit alarming. There's a parking brake there. Just these things that have happened while I've been living with this. Right, I'll show you the dashboard from a different angle now. Okay, I've just hopped in to show you the interior. I should point out though, I don't know if you can see around the Bose speaker there, the sound system is really good, by the way, on the Ultimate car, the Bose sound system. That's all dirty because it gets kicked to buggery when people get in and out of the car. Likewise, my thigh support down here, that is already dirty as well. It's one of those light interior problems. Anyway, you get two 12.3-inch screens. You get one there for the driver's display, one there as a touchscreen for everything else. And yeah, there are a few little niggles with the entertainment system. I don't like how Hyundai always puts purple text on silver buttons. When the sun is shining on this, it is really hard to see what the buttons say because they're not always lit up either. And it's just, it's a bit infuriating. And you also can't get to all of the menus using these buttons. So if you want to add a phone to the car, you have to reach and press this home button there and then go through the other menus. But, you know, by and large, it's okay. It has got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you have to plug in for them. No wireless action there. And I've been averaging 3 miles per kilowatt hour in this. I have had up to 3.8, which is what Hyundai claims, but I've been getting 3, and most of that was motorway driving yesterday. I think it also takes too many presses to turn things like the heated steering wheel on. You have to press climate. Then you have to go front warmer and ventilation, or actually you can just press the warmer button there, and then heat steering wheel, and you can drag this up and down to heat your seats. There's too many options basically for the climate, but lots of them are there so you can turn them off to increase the range. If I shut the door and hit my camera on the steering wheel, you'll see the range readout there, 186 miles. However, that depends on the drive mode. I'm in Eco at the moment. If I put it into Sport, 181. I wasn't in Eco, I get 192 in Eco. But yeah, the range readout depends on which of the 3 driving modes you're in. I would just leave it in Eco because it's nice and easy to drive and it doesn't feel too slow like in some cars. Otherwise, I think the cabin feels nice and light and airy, loads of headroom. The doors are pretty big, actually, I should point that out. If you park in small spaces and you can't open them very far, it can be a bit of a pickle. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I should point out that Ultimate cars get head-up display with augmented reality. And all that really means is when you've got a sat-nav destination in, it shows you kind of animated lines to tell you to move into this lane, don't take that turning, that kind of stuff. It does underline other cars. So if there's a car in front of you and you've got adaptive cruise on, it will underline the car. And it's kind of weird, like you've got virtual reality mode enabled. What is he carrying in the back of his Golf? It's an entire horse. Right, sorry, that went on way longer than I would normally allow an interior section, but this car's insides are so different to anything else, I just thought it was worth showing you. And I've just noticed that the pedals have plus and minus on them. It loses a point for that. So let's go for a drive and see what the Ioniq 5 single motor is like in slightly wet, damp British conditions. Right, so I want to go for a drive in my Hyundai Ioniq 5, so I put my foot on the brake. I've already hit the EV stop button, and I go into D. I just need to clear the windscreen because it started raining, because we live in Britland, where it does that a lot. If I was going to sum up how this car drives, which means you can skip the next 5 minutes, it's very comfortable and it's very easy to drive. Everything about it just feels just very simple. If you've never driven an electric car, this just responds exactly how you might expect it to. There's nothing weird you have to learn about it. You lift off the accelerator and it starts slowing down. Now you can adjust how much it slows down, the brake regeneration, using these little paddles behind the steering wheel. So you can go all the way to level 3, it says on the dashboard, and that's when you lift off. And it's a reasonable amount of braking force. Now, if you press that left paddle again, it puts it in I-pedal mode, which means you can drive it using only the accelerator. You put your foot down, it goes. If you lift off, it actually brakes. I'm not touching the brakes, and I've come to a stop. So you can actually drive it using one pedal. Some people like that, some people don't. I find it quite satisfying timing it like a game. So you lift off for a traffic light and aim to stop without using the brakes by the time you get to the white line. Or what you can actually do is have no regeneration, so it just carries on cruising when you lift off the accelerator. It will eventually slow down on hills and things like that. Or you can hold the left paddle, and that's like you're pressing the brake, so you don't have to use the brake pedal. It's not quite as strong as the brakes, but it does the motor braking. Anyway, that's a lot of boring chat about paddles. Visibility out is pretty good. The C-pillars at the back corners of the car are quite thick, so looking over your shoulder, there's a reasonably large blind spot there. But yeah, really, really lovely car to drive. It just feels normal, it feels comfortable. I did a big 200-mile round trip to Silverstone yesterday to ride a Ducati, which was a lot more exciting than this, but this was a really good motorway companion. And as I said, the range didn't start plummeting. When I got to 70, 75 miles an hour for an hour at a time, the range didn't lose like an extra 50 miles over what I should have lost. if that makes sense. It's a very accurate range readout, and you feel like you can trust it. Some other cars, yeah, as soon as you start doing motorway speeds, it drops a lot of miles off your range. This does not. Yeah, I'm going to get some dual carriageway and show you how noisy it is at 70 miles an hour. Then I'm going to get to a twisty road and show you how the rear motor feels when you hoof out of corners and things like that for sportier driving. Let's get to that now, because I've kept you far too long already. I'm sorry. It's like you're in detention, except you're watching a boring video rather than doing lines on the blackboard. Right, I'm about to join my dual carriageway 70 mile an hour limit from a 50 limit. So I'm going to go up to the UK's motorway speed limit and around a bit of a bend first. How does it grip? I mean, it's not that much of a bend, but it grips pretty well. It doesn't understeer too manically, even though it's wet. I don't know if you saw that. That went really sideways. I wasn't expecting it to do that much sideways. Yeah, because this has got a motor on the back axle, when it's wet like this and you're coming out of junctions, around corners a bit too fast like that, and you boot it, it does what an old BMW would. It'll do a bit of oversteer. But all the electronics looked after me, it was fine. I didn't panic at all. So you'll be fine. But if you want the ultimate traction, there's the dual motor version, but obviously it's more money. That does make it a lot faster. That takes 0 to 60 to 5.2 seconds, which is rapid. It's got about 300 odd horsepower. 0 to 60 in this one, 7.5 seconds, and 8.5 in the 58 kilowatt hour battery one. But you don't really buy these cars for performance, I would argue. They've all got enough mid-range shove. When you put your foot down at 30, it gets to 50 quickly, etc, etc. Now, we're on 70 mile an hour, dual carriageway, and it's pretty quiet in here. I haven't got an awful lot of road noise. I haven't got an awful lot of wind noise either. And you don't have to turn the radio up very loud to drown that all out anyway. And that Bose sound system is really good, as I've already said. I had a lot of fun listening to podcasts on the motorway yesterday. It's just an easy car to drive. Because this is an ultimate one with that augmented reality head-up display, it shows you your blind spot warnings in the head-up display. So if there's a car coming up next to you, it tells you that in the windscreen. It's really helpful, actually. I wish more manufacturers would put that there. The lane keep assist. There's all sorts of lane keep assist systems on this car, and it can change lanes for you when you indicate. I don't like it. It's just too intrusive, but there's a button here you can turn it right off without having to go through menus or use a touchscreen, which is good. And there's all the usual systems, such as a little look behind view when you indicate left or right. It shows you a camera view down that side of the car. So I'm indicating left, I can see that lorry behind me. Obviously I'll do a shoulder check because I'm not a hooligan. But it's just a helpful thing for driving around towns when there's cyclists and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so most of the tech is helpful. It does bong a lot, not as much as that Tucson I had last week. And it tells you when the car in front has moved off, when you're in a traffic jam, little things that do help. But there are a lot of beeps and bongs, and I've had to turn a lot of them off in that system. Yesterday I was going around the M25 and I kept hearing a bong. I'm like, what's it? Why is it bonging? There's no warning lights. It was because it thought every gantry was a speed camera, and every gantry isn't a speed camera. If you know your UK speed cameras, they're now yellow ones at the side of the motorways. They're the only ones you have to slow down for, he says. That is not legal advice. Right, I'm going to get to a twisty road and try not to scare myself too much with unexpected sidewaysness, and I'll tell you how it goes around corners. But it is very wet, wetter than an otter's pocket. Right, I'm coming up to my twisty road in the Ioniq 5. I often wonder why I bother doing this bit of the video, because you don't buy this thinking it's going to be a sports car. But I always think it's good to know if it gives you confidence to go down a national speed limit road at the national speed limit. Anyway, 30 to 60. Let's go. That's 50. Right, I'm going to put it in sport mode now. That sharpens everything up and makes it feel a little bit more powerful, even though it's not really. Doesn't change the suspension. It probably does weighten up the steering a little bit, but I can't notice. So yeah, it's fine going down a road quickly. It doesn't understeer as quickly as you think. That's where the front wheels start pushing wide because of the significant weight of that battery. I think this car's about two tons thereabouts, maybe 2.2, I've forgotten. But it doesn't really feel that heavy, and unless you start cornering like you're on a racetrack, you don't really notice that weight, and it's all down low. It's a little bit rolly, but not massively. I don't roll out of my seat. I'm in place. It's fine. Yeah, it's not an exciting car to drive quickly, apart from slight moments of oversteer when you're being an oaf in the wet. But yeah, so it's decent. And I know that if you're the sort of person that maybe used to have a BMW or something, used to enjoy driving quickly, you can have some fun as we've seen in this, you can skid it around a little bit. Very irrelevant, I know, in a family EV, but it's good to know that it's there if you want to have some fun. The dual motor, which I drove last year, that is just really quick in a straight line. You come out of a corner in that, put your foot down, and you feel like your insides have moved about a bit. It's good. Right, it's probably enough irrelevant chat about the Ioniq 5. Back to you, Tim, for an outro. Oh, and it's got a 5-year warranty. 8 years on the battery. So in conclusion, what do I think, having lived with the Ioniq 5 for a week and using it as a family car? Well, it's an astonishingly good all-round EV. It is really spacious. I've not had any problems getting the kids' prams and everything else in it. And it's actually quite nice getting the kids in and out because it's not too low either. Loads of room. It feels spacious inside. It feels special. And obviously it looks, I think technical term, the tits. At least I think it does. It looks amazing. People stare at you when you drive this down high streets. Maybe you'd like that, maybe you don't. If you don't, get the Kia EV6. It's a bit more traditional looking. Downsides, the software. It has been a little bit glitchy. It's crashed 2 electric chargers that I've tried to use it with, and once I had to get out of the car, lock it and get back in it to be able to put it in gear, it just freaked out after a charge and I couldn't move the car, which was embarrassing for 5 minutes. But yeah, other than that, I think all that gets worked out in software these days. It's a really, really cracking car. It can charge really quickly as well, which is important for something you're going to use for the family, so you can do long trips and stuff in it without getting too worried. There we go. Hope that was helpful. If you're going to buy one of these, do let me know in the comments because I'm interested to hear about your experiences too. Hit like if it's been really awful, and I'll see you next time when I won't be in a lay-by getting rained on by a very angry God. See you next time. Bye.